Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. And oh my goodness, I have someone magical for us this week. Why do I say she's magical? Because she actually does create magic, right? And what I mean by that, she is a mindset and accountability coach, and she's been doing this for 12 years plus. But there's a top secret. She is exclusively, right? She exclusively belongs to Lisa Johnson. So it's very difficult to get your hands on her. All right, I'm just letting you guys know. But she creates magic, and she's done this for so many of us in the DI community, right? And you should know what DI community is. It's the mastermind that I've been on, and I met all these wonderful ladies. And Renee, who's going to be coming speaking to us about why it's important to cultivate our mindset and how she's helped me fight through so many demons just throughout the last few months. And we're going to be dropping some golden nuggets as well. So please welcome to the stage, Renee. Oh my goodness. I am super
Hi.
excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here too. Kind of nervous, but it's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I knew I had to have you on this show. I had to because you are doing wonders for every single one of us. Like, it doesn't matter what stage we are in our business, right? Some people are making seven figures in their business, but we all have some sort of blocks, right?
Absolutely.
At some stage. And you're helping every single one of us fight through those blocks so we can get to the next level in our business. And it's awesome what you do and how you do it. Okay, I'm gonna stop there because I don't want to say too much. I could go on and on and on about all the magic that you do. But I would really like for you to share with our audience today a little bit about what your journey has looked like, right? How you've built this business, because I'm sure you've had some ups and downs yourself. So, what did that look like for you?
Well, it actually started about 15 years ago where personal stories, I guess, is where I was in a massive like postpartum depression. So I didn't leave my house for 9 months. I struggled to shower. I struggled with absolutely everything that you can think of. I was
Whoa.
actually in probably like the low of the low of the low. And I realized that, well, I was like in a victim mindset for sure, but I realized that it was me that had to save me. And if I wanted things to change, it was me that would have to do things. So I actually started signing up and taking courses to learn to understand what I was going through better. So I have like psychology, one-off advanced psychology classes. I was taking my psychology degree, all those things just for me to be able to understand. I was reading self-help books. I signed up for like local, through local coaches, doing those types of things as well. And it actually worked out, excuse me, where I joined up with a business, like an ex-business partner at the time. And with all of the knowledge that I had and all of the knowledge that I helped teach her and what she developed on her own and all of those things, we actually created Canada's largest self-care network because we created something that we needed. We were struggling. I have two kids. I was massively in postpartum, like I said. My son is special needs. So I was just, and my husband like works out of town and I was just drowning. And when you're in a panic and you're just like, I just need a solution. And so then you go to Google and you're like, oh, find it, find it, find it. And all I was able to find was like government programs and things like that. But it wasn't what I needed it to be. It wasn't that community feeling. It was just like one-off, therapy sessions and things like that. And so we created something that we needed. And in the first year, it bloomed into being like this massive thing. And we did that for 6 years. And then from there, with all like the mindset that we were doing, we're doing international retreats, we did all the things. And then from there, when I decided to leave that business, um, backing up a little bit, I skipped a step, is this is where we met Lisa. So I was actually a DI participant. So just
Okay.
like you, I was in DI for a year because we were looking for people where I'm from. Women entrepreneurs aren't necessarily what they are over there. They're kind of laughed at here, they're MLMs here, things like that. And so we weren't really taken seriously. And we didn't really have any friends at our level that we could talk to that weren't clients. And because we're mindset, we have a lot of confidentiality things and a lot of ethics, like a therapist, like can't be best friends or friends with like their clients kind of idea. And so we signed up for DI. And when our DI ended, I decided to leave the business. And then that's when I got hired on with Lisa.
Oh, wow. Okay. So many more questions now.
So
Okay.
many. Yeah.
So, first of all, why did you decide to leave the business?
There was like a little bit. So with the business partner, we had a little bit of a falling out, but it just wasn't like what I needed it to be anymore or where I wanted it to go. When you are in a business partnership, you have to be super communicative between each other, which we were, but we also wanted very different things. And what she was striving for and what I was striving for ended up starting to clash. And so we were able to advance our positions or our careers better solo.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was best for all parties, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And then you got to work with the awesome Lisa, right? And you're still doing
Mhm.
so, which is great. Now, I want to dig a little bit more here because what you do is insane. I don't know how you're able to keep up with it. I don't know how you do what you do, but you are awesome at it. And so you've gone through so many different courses. Like, how did you manage to, I guess, keep business and all the stuff that your clients talk to you about? Because sometimes it can get very personal, right?
Mhm.
How did you keep the boundary between the two and not take these stories home with you?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I learned, even when I was going through like my postpartum depression and in the
Mm.
journey together, it's a practice. But what I learned is someone else's outcome or what they're going through isn't connected to me, and I didn't have to take it on anymore. And
Mm.
so someone else's drama gets to be their drama and it doesn't have to be with me. So, a tangible example is if, you have a sibling and your parents and they're fighting, that's their fight to have. It's not part of you. You're not included in that. Even if they call you, be like, you have to defend me, or are you on my side? Those types of things.
Right.
You don't have to participate in that. And so you get to decide what rooms, if you're going to like stay in attendance to those types of things, and you get to understand that like someone else's drama is someone else's drama.
Mm.
And being able to separate from that was like one of the biggest things. So if someone came to me and they were having a mindset issue, I didn't have to take it on because it wasn't my problem to solve. It's their problem to solve. I just get to direct them and guide them to where they need to be for them to solve that problem for themselves.
Oh my goodness, I love that. I love that. And so you've been doing this for some time, right? You know exactly how to take yourself out of the situation and the drama that you don't need to be in. But when it comes to like family, like you said, right? And there's
Mhm.
always drama with family, one thing after another, right? How do you take yourself out? How do you make sure you don't get sucked into that? Because I think it's really easy to get sucked into all the drama, especially with family. So, what are the methods or strategies so you don't get sucked into all that?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me was understanding boundaries. And so boundaries is me respecting me, like me respecting you, you respecting me, but then also me respecting me. And the me respecting me part is where I got to separate myself from doing things out of obligation that was building resentment and being able to like support what I needed and putting up those limits. And yeah, sometimes people were upset about that, but I was able to stand in that, like within that empowered state of being like, no, like this is what I need. I need to have this break. I'm only going to talk to you on the phone like once a week or twice a week. We don't need to have like 3 hour long phone calls, those types of things. Kind of
Oh my
thing. And
goodness.
so, yeah, so it's like being able to find a solution. So, boundaries to me isn't about trying to control a situation and trying to enforce certain things. Boundaries to me is what is going to keep everybody like in a safe place. And so it's not about, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. You're going against my boundary. It's, are they actually going against my boundary? Or am I just like, sorry for my language, but like pissed off because you did something that angered me instead of actually crossing a boundary, and being able to determine what's a boundary versus what I'm trying to control also really helped with that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So many questions here now, right? I love the fact that you're talking about boundaries because I think that gets mixed up with all the stuff that's going on and emotions, right? Gets carried away. And I know firsthand how emotions, right, can really kind of tear you up and all of a sudden you lose your way. And what I love about you is your patience. You're
Thank
super, super patient. And you have a way where you're very good at coaching individuals the way they need to be coached, right? Is
Hmm.
that you customize it, you know exactly what their personality is like, and you know how to get the information across. Now, that must have taken some time to understand that because there's several different styles on how people actually learn. And so, how did you actually come about that? Because I know there's loads of coaches out there that are listening to this and probably thinking, yeah, this will be a really good technique to learn. So, where did that all come from, and what's the best place to start with?
So I actually do. So if you remember in your first session, I'll ask specific questions because what I actually do is I behavioral like profile and
Right.
I see what and how they respond to certain situations. So I'll ask them, are you good with hearing hard truths? Are you good with, like when you hear the word accountability, how do you react to that? Because some people shut down with accountability and they'll just ghost, and then some people absolutely love it and they thrive in it. And so I'll ask specific, like almost leading questions to see how they respond to certain things. And I'll look at like their body posture and like their body language. I'll look at like how they react. I can usually pick up if they're like lying to themselves a little bit with it. And then that's how I determine it because sometimes people need to come up with their own truths and they
Mm.
need to have their own realizations and they don't want someone to tell them because they don't like they feel out of control or they don't like when someone like points something out because they already know it inside and they're having a hard time admitting it to themselves. They don't want other people to be able to see it. So that's when I know, okay, well, I'll just ask them a whole bunch of leading questions and then they can get to their own realizations. And then some people are like, no, give me the hard truth. I need that. And I'll be able to do that. And so that's what I'll actually do. And so getting into that, a couple of resources that I really like is Gretchen Rubin's Four Tendencies. I
Yeah.
really enjoy her framework when it comes to like the forms of accountability. And then I also really like the attachment theory quiz. It's all free online, the attachment theory quiz. And that shows if they have, there's a whole bunch of others, but really I look for an avoidant tendency or an anxious attachment.
Oh,
Yeah, so an anxious attachment are the
okay.
people that are like they need to solve the problem right now, and then the avoidant attachments are the people that like avoid it at all costs, or like they're the ones that walk out of the room first during an argument.
Oh, interesting. So are you fit in one or the other? There's no
Yeah.
like
There's a
middle
couple
ground.
like yeah, there's a couple other ones. So it's just
Right.
like for me, I'm like 72% secure and the rest is anxious attachment. So for me
Ooh.
personally, most of the time, like while I'm talking, you can probably see it where I say like I can like separate myself from the outcome and it's like someone else's problem is their problem. But that other like 30 some percent that's the anxious is just like, every once in a while when I'm tired, it's like I might need a little bit more like of a compliment from someone just to make sure that I'm like feeling
Ah,
good and on the right track, those types of things. So
yeah.
there are other components, but those are the two main ones that I look for when I'm doing a profile because it shows if they're going to ghost me or not in a session if they're going through something.
No,
Biggest,
interesting.
yeah, because the biggest thing that happens is when we're coaching, the client needs to be coachable. And if
Mm.
they're not coachable and they're always like arguing a point, even though they don't see it as arguing, they see it as questioning, or they're turning something down or always redirecting it or not actually answering the questions, then they have that avoidant tendency. So I approach them in a completely different way so they feel more comfortable showing up when they need to. I don't back them into that corner.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Now, this is awesome stuff, right? Because I want to talk about some of the conversations that we've had, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things right from the beginning, I had challenges when it came to social media, right?
Mhm.
And we've had several conversations with this, and now I think back at it, I had so many different excuses, right?
Yes. Excuses, excuses, excuses is everybody's favorite thing.
Right. And I'm like, you're pushing me and pushing me. You're like, you got to do lives. You got to do lives. You got to be, you got to show yourself a little bit more. Like, you got to kind of do more social media stuff, right? And I'm like, no, I can't do that. Or, no, I've got this problem. I can't do it now. Or this thing has come up and no one's going to respond. No one's watching me. No one's commenting. No one's like, it was one excuse after another. Now, as a coach, right?
Mhm.
Mindset coach and accountability coach, you got me there, right? I'm now doing videos, I'm now doing stories. And in fact, the other day I did a controversial video and that had the biggest hits ever, right?
Hmm.
It was awesome. And now I'm thinking, well, what was so freaking difficult? But at that point, it was like, it was it was so difficult. I couldn't see the other end of it. I couldn't see how I was gonna be successful in doing this, right? And so you had to be really patient with me, call after call after call, right? How did you, as a coach, right? Like, how are you able to keep that patient and keep telling the person again the same thing again and again and again? Because I know that when we're in a hard place, we can't see the other end, but you could see it. You can see there's light at the end of the tunnel. So, how do you, I guess, not get to a point where, oh my goodness, you know what, this person's not even listening to me, they're not coachable, right? How do you keep carrying on and helping them and coaching them to get to the other side? Do you see that person doing it? Can you see them breaking through? Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, I think there's like a couple different types of people. So there are the people that aren't coachable, and I will tell them, and it's just like you don't want to hear it. You're not necessarily ready for this yet. I can see like the progress that you can make when you feel like you can have this or, move past this, then come back. But then I can see the people that are actually trying. And you were trying. So even though you weren't necessarily showing up on the social media the way that you were, every single time that we had a call, you still went through different stages and different phases, and we busted through certain excuses that you had, and we built up that, like, the whole time we built it up so you were ready to go live because there was no more excuses to be had, kind of
Right.
idea. So there are, like I said, there are certain people that they just aren't coachable and they just don't want it because, I fully believe that like the first thing to mindset and awareness is the two things that we have to break through is our pride and is denial. Those are the two
Mm,
things. And if they're not willing to see that their pride is getting in the way or that denial is, there, like they pretend that everything's okay kind of idea. They're not willing to break through that. They're not willing to admit it to themselves yet. So they're not going to work through certain things. And they stay in that victim mindset. But there's some people that are in a victim mindset, but they're striving for that empowered mindset, that growth
right.
mindset. And when they want that growth, eventually they're going to do it. They just have to get into that stage where there's nothing left holding them back, or they feel like they're, I don't want to say backed into a corner because I don't mean it in an aggressive way, but they get into that energy almost of like, I'm putting my hair up in a ponytail and flipping that card table, and I'm going to get this shit done kind of idea.
Right. Yes.
Right. So it's just like motivating them to get into that, like, no, like I can make all of these calls and I'm going to do this. So getting them into that type of energy or getting them into the, like, there's no more excuses. What's the next thing that you're going to do now?
Ah, interesting. And see,
Yeah,
one of the things that I've noticed about you, you're kind of like, okay, this she's now giving me this excuse. We've got to get through that. Okay, now this excuse, let's get through that. Now the next excuse, to the point
totally.
where you're like, there's no more excuses now.
And that's where the denial is. So when I said pride and denial, denial is when you don't know that there's anything wrong. So every single thing that you're telling yourself, the story that you're telling yourself that is a reason why something isn't happening is a mindset block. So if you're like, oh, I'm not making my goal financially within my business, but it's because I don't have enough members in my audience, that's a mindset block. Like there's realistic, what's the word? There's logistics in some of those excuses, but there's also the excuses within those excuses, right? Like you can have $1 million business and only have 300 people on your social media, right?
Mm,
Like there's like logistics in it of the more people you have, the more money you're technically going to be making. So it becomes easier. But if you had loyal clients at those 300 people and they bought absolutely everything from you consistently all of the time and they're there to support you in all of the things, there's money in that you can make from them kind of idea, right?
right. I like
Right.
that.
So anything that you're telling yourself is like, oh, this is why this isn't happening. And that story, it's like, oh, I don't have an engaged enough audience, or I don't have this, or I don't have this. Look at the logistics, but look at the excuse that it is as well.
Okay, all right. That clears things up. Now, I want to take a couple of steps back, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned already about like having a community, having a group, right? It doesn't matter how big it is. And I had conversations with you about this too, because I was like, I don't have a community. No one responds, right? That was one of my kind of excuses, I guess, right?
Mhm.
Was that I'm not gonna be able to do this. How can I build a community, right? And that kept going on in my head. And I remember you telling me these stories about how you built a local community, right?
Mhm.
And in your driveway, right, you kind of set up a whole book club that people can come to, right, in your driveway locally. And that's how you built your community. I would love for you to share that story a little bit more because that was out, whoa, that's amazing. I need to get a house with a driveway so I can do the same, right?
Yeah, so with the business that we had before, we helped with self-care, and a lot of it was based off of, um, like the moms that are struggling to balance it all, or the ones that are struggling to admit what they actually wanted, and things like that. And so what we started doing was I created something called Development Night. And development night worked similar to a book club, but there was no actual book with it. It was
Right.
just they came to the house and we read Robin. So we went from person to person to person, or round Robin, I guess, from person to person to person. And we worked through all of the mindset stuff. And so what would happen is, the first class, only a couple, like the first class I ever offered, only one person showed up because it was new. People didn't know. And
Right.
then after a couple of weeks, I had 30 people showing up, and then I had to
Wait,
start turning people away. Yeah.
right. Okay. See, I want to stop there, right?
Yeah.
Because most people have one person trying to be like, okay, this doesn't work. This isn't working,
Mhm.
right?
Well, one person means it's working.
Well, yeah, but most people don't see it like that, right? They
Yeah.
see one person, okay, nobody else wants it, right? So how did you, now you've had training, right? You've been doing
Mhm.
this a lot longer than most people, which is why. But I guess, did any of that actually enter your mind? Like, maybe this wasn't right, maybe this isn't what people want. Did any of
No,
that into
yeah, no, not really. The fact that someone showed up meant that someone was watching, which meant that it was needed. So I saw it as if I keep going, other people are going to show up too. I think the only thing that really shifted or really changed with that one person was I realized that the structure for the original class that I had wasn't necessarily functional with one person. So I was able to change it from we're doing like group activities to we're doing the round robin and we're going to do individual coaching in between there because it also teaches other people to hold space for the person talking. Like people don't understand, but when someone's crying, you don't offer them Kleenex because you're telling them to shut down. You're telling them to hide their feelings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right?
That's
Like
a
so
natural
holding
thing to do.
space. Yes, you let them have their emotions and you let them sit there and like you don't interrupt them and you just let them vent it out and let them like have that moment. And if they ask for a Kleenex, then you give it to them.
Oh,
Kind of, yeah.
interesting.
We'll have them like all around the circle, but they can grab it themselves if they need it or they would ask to hand it to them. So like it was a lesson for the person going through the thing at the time, and it was a lesson for everybody around because everybody in a way almost feels uncomfortable because they want to hug them and they want to make them feel better and they want, to like change it. But it's just like we're not here to fix things because the last thing we want when we're in an argument with our spouses, for an example, or with a friend, sometimes we just want to vent. We don't want them to give us solutions or to fix something. We just want them to hear it.
Yeah.
And that's what those nights were for.
Oh, wow. Okay, that was awesome. That is,
Mhm.
when you mentioned this to me, I was like, I literally was like, I need to get a driveway. Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
need to
we
do this. Right.
yeah, we would
It's
change it
like,
up. Like different. So there was one time where I helped them understand the mindset around money and I gave them $100 bill and a dollar bill to like hold in their hands to understand that you need to have like they're this exact same thing. But then at the end of the night, I gave them like they got to keep the money.
oh, wow. Oh my God. You're just like Oprah. Right. You're giving
Yeah.
money away.
Yeah. It's fun. Like I took $10,000 cash out of the bank and I passed it around the group and I let them like feel what $10,000 cash, like a stack of cash felt like. So they
Wow.
were able to put like the visualization to the feeling to help them like understand what they were striving for. And so
See,
like all the classes were all those types of things.
this is awesome because you're huge when it comes to philanthropy as well. Right.
Absolutely.
If you could give away everything that you have, I know you would do it, right?
Hmm.
This is something that you actually love, that you're passionate about. And this is awesome. It makes me smile every time, like I hear you wanting to just throw $10,000 out there to everybody. It's awesome. Now, I want to just flip the script a little bit,
Mhm.
right? You are a wife, you are a mother, right?
Mhm.
You have a huge family that you take care of. And very recently, right? And in fact, even right now, as we speak, right?
Mhm.
Your family went through something terrifying, traumatic, right?
Yeah.
If you could explain what that is, because that's just happened like a few days ago, and so you're still in it, right?
Yeah.
And I guess to explain what happened, and also how you're able to keep yourself accountable and make sure your mindset is still cultivated with all this stuff going on.
Hmm. So even like before what happened, I'll get into that. There's been a lot of things that have been happening this year in general. We almost lost my mom. My dad just got diagnosed with cancer. My grandmother passed away, all like consecutive months. And then there's really big forest fires in Jasper, which actually took one of my family's homes. And so we've been like having to do like the evacuation process with that.
I mean,
And
you
so,
sent me a video. It's not just
yeah.
you, it's like the entire town has disappeared.
Yeah, majority of the town was burnt down, and it's even like a really big town tourist-wise within our province. Jasper is a huge national park, and it brings people from all over the world. It's in the Canadian Rockies, and like the gas stations were blowing up, and like it was like it created its own firestorm. It was just huge. And so there's been a lot. And so even me, like we're human. So like I'm going through grief. There's anticipatory grief, there's all of these things that are happening. And you almost get into a stage of survival mode where it's like, okay, I just have to get past this one thing. Then I just have to get past this next thing. Then I just have to get past this next thing. And you don't even give yourself that time to process. And when things are in that stage of just one thing after another, that's where we tend to start to spiral and we tend to start shutting down. And
Ah,
so, with like where I am and how I keep things separate, is I allow myself the grace that I need. So, I will show up, I have my requirements that are required of me, family wise, business wise, those types of things. And so, I know that I'll do the things that I need to do, but then I'll also give myself the reprieve that I need after. So, as an example, on Friday when we were supposed to record this and the situation
yeah.
happened, I messaged you and I was like, I can't do it today because I was up all night because, I was driving back and forth and all those things and doing what we needed to do. Excuse me, that I knew that my mental health wasn't where I needed it to be. And
Ah,
so me being able to show up for the interview and like the podcast, I wouldn't have been able to give the answers that I wanted to give because I was
right.
exhausted, I was tired, I was worn out, all of the things that could have happened. And so I was able to respect myself, that boundary again of me respecting me of like, what do I actually need? So, like when I block my time, I make sure that I include my self-care and what I need in my time blocking, in my scheduling. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, just so easier said than done. But when you respect the boundary that you have, you know that it benefits you, which gives you the ROI that you need. So many people don't see like they'd rather make money or they feel pressure to make money than to take care of themselves, as an example. But if you're
Right.
not taking care of yourself, you're not there to make the money. So your self-care is your ROI. So like on Mondays, I don't have any client calls. I specifically leave that as a transition into the week of work. And it's like I'll do videos like this, or I'll just worry about like the social media things that I have to do, but I'm not sitting there giving all of my energy away when I need to restore it.
Right.
In the calls with the Zooms and like with DI as an example. And so I strategically do that. And it's like if there's a day that I know that I'm super tired, or if there's a day that I know that is super busy, I'll bookend those days where I'll have a rest day before and a rest day after. And
Right.
then it makes me show up the way that I need to on there because I see it as the ROI that it is. I'd rather be in control of when I take my breaks and be in control of where I am in that restorative process than being forced into like a 3 week burnout kind of idea.
Right. Yeah. See, this is why it's so important to have boundaries, but we can get sucked into all the things we need to get done, right?
Mhm.
By a deadline. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful, right? We're going to fail. Like all these things come up. Now, there is a conversation that we had very recently about changing your patterns, right?
Mhm.
And that you kind of touched upon it already. Like you have your Mondays for certain things, and you're getting ready for the rest of your week. But can you explain to the audience about what it means to have different tasks for certain days and how that can actually help you be a lot more productive?
Yeah. So the first way that I like to look at it is figuring out what days are your hardest and what days are your easiest.
Ah,
And so what happens is, for an example, so many people will get like their takeout on a Friday night. Oh,
yeah.
the week's done. We're going to party. It's going to be great. We'll order pizza. We'll watch movies. We'll have friends over. This is exactly what we need. We're just going to let loose. But if you strategically used that takeout night on one of your hard days, that's one less thing you have to do on your hard day, and it supports you and gives you something to look forward to.
Ah,
So if you're super busy at work and you have a whole bunch of extracurricular with your kids, why not, instead of Friday when you have the energy and probably are just going to have a munchy night anyways, create an easy munchy night dinner on the Friday, like nachos or something, and
right.
then on the day that you actually need the support or the help, order dinner. And then that's how I like to place things. So I'll look at my week and I'll be like, what days are hard? What days are super busy? And what type of supports do I need on those days? So I still feel like I'm being taken care of.
Okay. All right. So I've got a question for you here, right?
Hmm.
Because all right, I'm gonna pretend you're having this conversation with me, and I've just said to you, right, I'm gonna have takeout on Friday, right? So I've got to wait until Friday. I can't do anything, I can't eat anything else right now. And you say to me, no, it's your hard day. Go and get your takeout now. And so
Hmm.
what comes into my mind is, but no, I'm gonna get fat if I do it twice a week. Right. Right. All these other stories come up like, no, I can't do it twice a week. It means I'm going to start putting on weight. Right. And
Yeah.
if I
But
go out of my routine, then I've messed up.
yeah,
Right.
totally.
So, what would you tell me then?
Yeah. So what I would look at and what I would have you assess is what types of food are you actually ordering for your takeout? Because oftentimes we're conditioned to believe that our takeout food is unhealthy. But if
Yeah.
we're eating processed foods at home, but having an actual cooked meal from a restaurant, chances are the restaurant food's actually healthier than what you're eating at home.
Oh, stop it. Oh my God, you totally flipped that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what I would look at because like I feel more inclined and better eating like a salad from the restaurant than at home, for an example. Or like if I'm having like a steak with potatoes at a restaurant
Yeah.
versus, like something that I'm making at home that's processed, that's super easy or quick because I don't have the energy to do it because, busy days means frozen pizza night. Right? Like you're still getting a healthier option. So you can eat out at a restaurant every single day and still have healthier options than you do at home.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
the
Okay.
intention that you set behind it.
I love this, right? Because, guys, if you're listening or watching this episode, do you see how quick she flipped that script, right? To turn it into a positive. This is what Renee does, right? Constantly, with all and every excuse you throw at her, right? She is able to turn it into a positive, which is awesome. And you saw that like right now in front of your eyes, right? This is cool. Okay. And so I want to kind of take it back a little bit more. Like, you've got kids, right?
Hmm.
You've even got a son with special needs,
Yeah.
right? And so, how do you, as a mother, as a business owner, right, helping people with clients, um, how do you manage that, right? From
Hmm.
making sure that you're there for your kids, making sure that you are able to do all the things you want to do with them, right? And
Yeah.
also at the same time, make sure that I guess you're emotionally there for everyone that you are actually speaking with, clients, right? Your family, your kids. How do you manage all of that?
Yeah. So the first thing that I actually do mindset wise is I remind myself that it's not work time and personal time, it's just time.
Mm,
So I don't have an allotment of, oh, this is my work time, so I need to get my work done. It's why can't it be both? I can work and still maintain my family. I can maintain my family and I can still work, and I don't have to have any guilt about that. If, like, if I'm watching a movie with my kids, sometimes I'm super invested in that movie and I just want to sit there and cuddle them. I'll let myself do that. But if I'm sitting there and I'm scrolling on my phone anyways, and I have an idea pop into my head for a post, I'll let myself do that. And
Right.
it's not one or the other. One of my favorite mantras that I tell myself is like, why can't it be both? Why can't I work when I want to work and family when I want a family, knowing that I have a status quo level of responsibility that I'm naturally going to fall into and trust myself that I'm going to fall into. Like my kids are going to get fed because I naturally am responsible enough to know that I have to feed my kids. Like it's not going to be like, oh, like I have to work, I can't feed my children. It's like, no, like I'm going to put work aside to feed my children. And I rely on that. And I naturally know that that's a part of me. Like when we're on vacation, our bills still get paid, right? It's the same thing at home. Like when we're interviewing for a podcast, our bills are still being paid. Our kids are still being maintained. It doesn't have to be one or the other when it comes to like that family dynamic. It gets to be both. And so one of the things that helps is learning to ask for help.
Ah,
So that's like one of the biggest things. It's like your communication. I always say hints, nudges, signs, and like all of those things, like signs, hints, and nudges, and those wink winks, and those I'm gonna subtly drop this hint to you. Like that's not forms of communication. Like
but
it's
wait,
not.
but girlfriends, wives, we do that all the time with our
I
other
know, and
partners.
that's why you're not communicating. That is your number one problem,
But how
right?
do they not understand these things that we keep
Because
giving them
no
hints
one's a
about?
mind reader. Right? Like we miss hints and stuff all the friggin' time, right? So it's just like we can't expect people in our household to read our minds that way. It doesn't work that way. So we have to be vocal. It's not like, oh, I'm cold. I'm going to test him to see if he's going to give me a blanket. It's like, hey, I'm cold. Can you get me the blanket? It's right beside you, right? Like communicate it. So when you need help, it's like don't just be like, hey, I need your help, but I don't know what I'm asking help for. Ask yourself what you actually want help for. What do you need help delegating? And, you know, if you're single, like this is a little bit more complicated because you don't necessarily have someone with you all the time. But it's just like what can you do to ask for help? Does that mean that you're going to prioritize getting a cleaner instead of a tech VA? Because like
Right.
you can do the tech VA, but if the cleaning is the energy like that you're constantly having running through your mind all the time and it's taking up time, energy, and money from you, then like the cleaner's probably the better bet for you. Right. So
Mhm.
it's like being super vocal and clear on what you actually need. Because I think that's one of the biggest things is people don't know, they don't know how to ask for help because they don't know what they're asking help for.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Now, have your kids ever asked, Mum, what are you talking about when you talk to these clients? What do you mean mindset? Like, what is all
Yeah.
that about?
So my kids aren't really like in the present, so they don't know what I teach or what I do. Like if I ask my daughter, like, do you know what I do? She's like, no, not really. I'm like, okay. She's like, no. She thinks I work for an influencer. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But where it really shows is where I have to remember to get down to her level. My daughter's 15. And so
Oh,
when she's going through arguments with her friends, and I'm like, okay, but like we have to look at their side of the story too. You can tell that at like the 15-year-old level, she doesn't want to think about that. She just wants me to agree with her. So
right.
I'll always ask her, I'm like, do you want me to give you a solution and fix the problem? Do you want me to just like hear you out and listen? Like, do you just need to vent or do you just need me to agree with absolutely everything that you're saying, even if we know that you're wrong? And then she'll tell me what she needs. But that's where it comes in is like when I'm trying to help her through certain problems, it's just like, oh, okay, she's still at that 15-year-old like level. Like it's not there yet where she has empathy towards the other people.
Right. Okay, I see. Oh my goodness. And so does she see what you like the conversations that you have with people? Does she even understand when you're giving her these options as to how to react? Like that this is what you do, like this is what you do on a regular basis. Does she understand any of that?
Yeah, so she does when it's the people at the house. So when I was with my previous business and the people would come over, she would like look, like she wouldn't stay up here, but she would like pay attention to certain things. And I think the older that she gets, the more she starts to understand it, but she's definitely not at that. I don't think she cares enough to get it. kind of idea. And I don't think she fully grasps. It's not something that we talk about at home a lot with like my position that I'm in. Because I'm so removed, because like I'm in Canada versus like working with Lisa who's in the UK. Like I'm also super removed from the environment. Like I don't go to all of their in-person events and things like that. So at home, we're just normal. Like we don't see the impact that we're making and things like that.
Yeah. Now, I've got to mention, you were in Vegas with us.
It was.
That was awesome, right? And you did a little presentation and you volunteered me, right?
Yeah, I
You
did.
you volunteered me to like look like an airplane. It was awesome, right? Right, but you were actually it was a teaching moment, right?
Hmm.
And you were helping us through like how to get through the hard times. Would you like to explain to people like what that was? Because I think that's something that a lot of people are struggling with, and it really helped to understand what you were doing there and how it actually helps people.
Yeah. So the thing to understand is just like you have a business strategy and just like you have a strategy with your time blocking, you can also have an emotional strategy. You can condition your body to feel emotions so they don't overtake or so they don't spiral as much. And one of those techniques is like grounding yourself, which is the exercise that I was showing you. And so when our body can only physically feel one emotion at a time. So when we are upset and angry, that's what our feeling is feeling. Now, anger is a secondary emotion to fear or sadness. So you can always bring your anger down to those two things. But people are like, no, like I can feel like happy and sad at the same time. You think of like the movie Inside Out, where like the core memories have like the dual colors and the dual
Mhm.
emotions. It's like they're there, but what happens is like when you're happy in that moment, you're only feeling happy, and it's the quick flips that you're seeing in those emotions. And so with those quick flips is we can condition ourselves to have pattern disruptors within those quick flips so they last a little bit longer. So when you're upset about something, you can stop that upset and think about something happy, even if it's just like conditioning yourself in the beginning for just like a couple of seconds. It's just like, oh, okay, there was the pattern disruptor. And then it just becomes more natural. But you can also like condition your body at certain times. This is what therapy does. So when you go to therapy for a long period of time, your body starts to anticipate that appointment time. It's starting to anticipate walking into that building. It's starting to anticipate when you start seeing that person. And so what happens is your emotions, like it happens even during some of my Zoom calls when I work with someone for a long period of time, they'll like click on to the Zoom and then they'll just start crying because they know that it's a safe space, but they've been conditioned into that time frame that with me they feel safe enough to let go and to do that. And that's what therapy does. So you can condition yourself like that on a day-to-day basis. So for an example, it's just like how we get used to a routine where it's just like if we wake up at the same time every day and we go to bed at the same time every day and then we go to bed a little bit later and then all of a sudden we feel like we're out of whack, it's the exact same thing. Or another tangible example is when this is kind of like a little out there, but it's like when someone passes away that's really close to us and then like let's say it's a February and then like we're having like a really hard time later down the road and it's just like oh it's just like such a crap month and then you realize it's February and it's almost the date of the anniversary of their passing. Like our body's conditioned into those emotions. And so you can create that time and that space. You can create it while you're going for walks that you're letting go and processing those emotions. Or when you're having a bath, that's your time to process those emotions. And when you start getting it into the time frame, or not time frame, but when you start getting into that routine, it becomes more natural every single time. So the first couple times you might be like, oh, like this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. It doesn't feel like this. But like you can also condition yourself to have those times for your creative times too. So every single morning, I wake up before I have to so I could take a bath because the bath is the only uninterrupted time that I ever get. My kids are still sleeping or my door is locked and they can't come in, right? So that's when it's just like I'll open up my phone on my notes and come up with a whole bunch of ideas while I'm in there because my body's conditioned to be creative while I'm in the tub kind of
Right.
idea because it's like almost like you create like this meditative practice without it being meditative of having to clear your thoughts. You're bringing the thoughts in. And so you can condition
Oh,
yourself into that. And there's different ways of like grounding yourself. So one of my favorite techniques going on a little bit of a tangent here, but one of my favorite techniques is when you have a really rough day and it's not going according to plan, what I always recommend is for you to go brush your teeth again.
Why
Every,
brush your teeth?
because brushing your teeth is the first thing that you do in the morning and it's your wake up. And so
Oh,
it resets your body into thinking that you're starting over.
oh, interesting. That is pretty cool. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
at nighttime, brushing your teeth will keep you awake. So like if like truckers will brush their teeth to stay up during the night during a long haul trucking because
God.
it's like the start of their day.
Okay, so are you saying we shouldn't brush our teeth before we go to bed?
No, brush your teeth when you go to bed. But I'm saying though, like you can set the intention if you have to have like a later night, don't brush your teeth with the like still brush your teeth with your nighttime routine, but brush your teeth at a different time to
Ah,
like start over.
okay. Oh my goodness, so many golden nuggets here. Oh my
Yeah.
word. So, Renee, I know at this point people are probably thinking, how do I connect? Right now, as I said in the beginning, you are exclusively Lisa Johnson's secret sauce, right? So, the only way we can work with you is if people join the DIA Mastermind, right?
Yes and no.
Oh,
So, yeah. So, I am exclusive with Lisa. We have opened up one-to-ones with me, but you have to message support@lisajohnson.com to be able to have access to that. Or you can message me through Facebook, but I'm only available for certain one-to-one sessions. But yeah, I am pretty exclusive to just DI. It's very limited one-to-one times.
yeah. All right. Awesome. So, guys, make sure you connect with Renee on social media, right? Go and see what she's doing. She's doing amazing stuff. Like, everyone's got great things to talk about, right? When it comes to her magic and what she does for all of us and how she actually helps us get away from all those blocks. I mean, you heard it, you've seen it in this episode, right? Like, how quickly she can, like, change that trigger, right? And turn it into a positive. So, make sure you go ahead and connect with her. She is awesome. Renee, thank you so much for so many kind of golden nuggets that you dropped so
Thank
like
you
quickly in this episode. It was
for
awesome.
having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh my goodness. I cannot wait for more of our calls because there's so much more I've got to talk through with you. This is going to be awesome. All right. Thanks again, Renee.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.